the middle. All right. 5 minutes on changing your name, changing my name. So, the reason I thought this would be interesting for me to talk about it, and the reason I want to talk about it right now on my birthday, is because I just drank a big mug of magical potion called coffee, and I want to get it out before the magic potion wears off. So, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to capture this one because the last video I made, I called it Nobody's Watching, and I made some jokes about nobody watching, and even made a joke about maybe changing the name of my podcast to Nobody's Watching. And I've been thinking about that today, and I think it's a pretty good idea. It's starting to really resonate with me, and I like the idea. And I'm really not I'm not afraid at all of changing the name of whatever I'm doing, and uh, especially if nobody's watching, and I don't have that many subscribers, and why not change the name to something better if something comes up and it resonates more with myself, at least. But I also thought it would be really interesting to go ahead and talk about my name, my own name. I go by the name of Gift these days. And if you're watching this, you probably know me, and you may or may not know the story of why I ask people to call me Gift. It's one of those things that has been a really interesting experience for myself because when I meet people now and they say, hi, what's your name? And I say, my name's Gift. If they don't know me yet, it's a new person, there's like an 80% chance they'll be like, what? And I'm like, Gift, like Gift, like present. And they're like, oh, Gift, huh? And I know it's coming, right? I, I can see it a mile away. But there'll be some variation of, is that your real name? Or, how'd you come by that name? Like, eh? And a lot of times people will give me this look like, that's not your real name. You're full of shit, or this kind of like dubious look. I know the look. I get it constantly. And it's fine. And so I thought I would just make a post here and explain the whole thing because sometimes I end up telling the story of why I decided to start going by the name Gift. Sometimes I don't. And many variations of a similar conversation generally happen when this comes up. And my super good friends, my best friends, the people closest to me, they're totally cool with it. They don't care. But a lot of people do care, actually. Or maybe it's not caring, but curiosity. Let's call it, at the least, curiosity. So here's the story, if you don't know it. And if you do know it, or you've heard it, let's see if I tell it the same way. So the story goes like this. My mom named me Chris. She actually named me Christopher, but my whole life I've been called Chris. So my name is Christopher William Hubbard. The William came from my dad and my dad's dad and my dad's dad. Apparently the story is that they were supposed to call me Arlie because my dad's name is Arlie and his dad's name is Arlie and his dad's name is Arlie and his is and there's some kind of like heritage thing with the name Arlie, and my dad's parents were quite upset that my mother didn't want to call me Arlie. She wanted to call me Christopher, and so she did. And her side of the story is that that kind of caused some controversy. Um, you know, Changed the name from Arlie to Christopher. Oh my God! And I don't know how drama the drama was, but that's what I've heard. And that's interesting on its own. So my name's been Chris, and in 2009, what is it, like 2000, yeah, 2009ish, I left the States and I went traveling, and one of my stops was Thailand. I was in Thailand, I think when I was in Chiang Mai, I met a bunch of local Thais and they took me out partying, and I drove around with them with bottles of whiskey in their car, drinking and going to different clubs. And one of the people in this little crew was a girl, a Thai girl, and her name, as she told it to me, was Gift. And I remember when I heard that name and I thought, that's the most interesting name I've ever heard. And something about the name really appealed to me. Not the person, but the name. I don't remember this person at all, actually, but I never forgot the name. And it was just like seared into my brain. Like there was something in me that was like I wanted that name. I liked that and wished I could have that name. I wished that name was my name. I don't think I talked about that at all for years. It was just something that was in me that I knew about myself. And then when I moved to Taiwan. I remember somebody asking me if I had a Chinese name, and I did not. And they're like, great, you can pick a Chinese name. And, at that time, most people would pick something, a transliteration of their own English name. Like, my Chinese name was going to be a version of Chris. So it'd be like Kaisa or, something like this. So it sounds like my English name. But when this Taiwanese person I was chatting with asked me about my Chinese name, and then he offered to like help me find a Chinese name. He was like, let's choose a Chinese name. And I knew exactly what I wanted. I was like, oh my God, this is my opportunity. I want to be called Gift. So what's gift in Chinese? And the guy was like, that's a really weird name. Like I wouldn't recommend you have this name because it would be Li U. And if you're telling people your name is Li U, it's going to sound really weird. But I didn't care at all. I was like, I don't care. That's the name I want. I didn't understand what Liu meant at the time anyway. It's just like sounds to me at the time. But I was like, that's what it is. That's what I want. I must have this, the Chinese version of Gift. And this guy was really smart because he was like, okay, actually, Li is a very common surname for many Chinese people. And so I can give you this Li. This is called a Muzi Li. And that's actually a really common last name. So that makes sense. And then for the other character, for Li U, I'll give you this other U, which is now I know in Chinese is like Sun Wukong de U or Wu Dao de U. But basically, this U means kind of like awareness or awakenness, or almost like enlightenment or something. And I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. And he's like, so basically, you'll write the name Li U. So if you say it, it sounds like gift, but if you write it, it doesn't say the word gift, it says something else. It actually looks like a common name. So it was like, perfect. And that became my name. My official Chinese name. It's on my documents, it's on my ID. I have a stamp signature for Li U. And most Taiwanese people that I met, I would introduce myself as Li U, especially if we're speaking in Chinese. So people know my name as Li U here. Mostly Taiwanese. Like my foreigner friends would call me Chris, but a lot of people, even a lot of foreigner friends I have, would be aware that my Chinese name was Li U. But in the background, over the 15 years that I've been here, in the background, this thing would happen where let's say I met somebody new, a Taiwanese friend, and they asked my name, and I say, it would go something like this, like, my name's, 我的名字是李武, my name is Li Wu, and they'd be like, Li Wu. I'm like, yeah, Li Wu, like gift, but, 木子李孙悟空的 Wu. And then they'd be like, oh, and, basically what's happening is at first they're like, Li Wu seems weird because it means gift, but then when I tell them the spelling, they're like, oh, that actually it makes sense and it's really cool. And so I'd have this experience of, having my name be appreciated and people thinking it's cool. And I really liked that. I mean, what can I say? I felt proud of the fact that I was able to, have this idea for a name, that I met somebody who was able to like give me a super creative solution for it. I don't even know where this guy is anymore. I wish I could thank him. If you're watching it, thank you. But so I've gotten this experience of having this name be appreciated for almost the whole time I've lived in Taiwan, but during that whole time, something else was also happening, which was this secret desire that my English name could be Gift as well. And I just kind of kept that to myself mostly. I never really talked about it with anybody. I never said it to anybody. I never came out with that. I just kind of had that idea, and I never really did anything about it because if I thought of the idea like asking people to call me Gift, I'd feel this embarrassment about it. Like, okay, well that's weird, like to like change my name and then people are going to think that's kind of silly, or people are going to think that I'm trying to be cool, and like it's kind of it's like one of these things that I'm okay, I'm going to be embarrassed, and the best way to and just don't do that. Like I don't need to be embarrassed and put myself out there in a way that causes criticism from other people, or judgmental, judgment from other people about this, something I'm trying to do that seems cool. Like I already feel like I get enough of that. So, but then, yeah, a few years ago, I was just like, I've been reading certain books, I've been practicing, trying to step into my own truths and embrace who it is that I want to be, who it is that I am, and embrace doing the things that I want to do, and seeing that I don't really need to be embarrassed about wanting the things that I want, doing the things that I want to do, that actually by keeping them internalized and not doing them, I'm actually not really living my fullest self. I'm not actually having as much fun in life as I could be having. So one day I just did it. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna switch all my shit to Gift and be like Gift W Hubbard instead of Chris. And I started coming out with that and being like, yeah, I'm gonna be calling myself Gift now, and telling people my name is Gift. And what happened was what I thought would happen, actually. Some of what I was afraid of happening happened, which was there were a lot of people that reacted kind of like, really? Gift? Like, oh, are you the gift of God? You're the gift? Like it sounds like it's a really arrogant thing or something. Like I think I'm the gift to the world, or, whatever it is. They don't know the story. They don't know actually where I'm coming from. It just, there's a bunch of people that think I'm just like super cocky or something. And that's not actually the place I'm coming from. I don't think I'm like the gift to the world by any means. I just like the name, and I like how it sounds, and I think it sounds cool. And so I came out with that. But to be fair, I also didn't really own it fully. Sort of like 60% owned it, because the same thing would happen where if I met somebody and I was like, yeah, my name's Gift, they'd be like, yeah, like, what's that about? And then I would feel this need almost to validate or justify it by telling the whole story. Like, well, this, and then, I met this person and blah, blah. And by telling this whole long story, it it seemed like it would help make sense for the other people and they would embrace it easily and it would kind of like bypass the embarrassment I had around the name. But it's a lot of work to do that every time. And I think that in the last year, I think specifically in the last year, I've realized that I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I don't need to tell everybody the reason why I did something. I don't need to justify why I've decided to, like, to pick a cool name for myself. So now what's happening is when somebody asks me what my name is and I say Gift and they either like, really? Or, kind of like question it and they say, well, why, why Gift? Instead of telling a long story, I'm just saying, yeah, because I like it and it sounds cool. That's why I want it. That's it, which is also true. And that's a good enough reason, actually, for doing anything. I like it. It's cool. It makes me feel good. I'm excited about it. And if you're not, then you're the one with the problem, actually. You know, um, you know, Marilyn Monroe doesn't have to justify changing her name to Marilyn Monroe. Jamie Foxx, Lady Gaga, Lana Del Rey, they don't need permission from other people to change their names. Or Freddie Mercury, or any of these people. You don't have to be, you don't need to be a celebrity. You don't need to be famous to do something like changing your name, changing your clothes, changing your image, changing your job. Whatever you want to change, you can change it. And yeah, some people are going to be judgmental and criticize and give you the, what? You know, like, whatever. So what? None of those people on the list, like Freddie Mercury, Lana Del Rey, they weren't celebrities and then they changed their name. They did it because they wanted to step into a kind of identity or a person that they wanted to live out, and they weren't afraid to do it. Nobody has a. So, anyways, that's before I sort of trigger myself into a side rant. I think that pretty much captures it, and so, you know, I like that I've arrived at a place where I feel super comfortable with the decisions that I've made, way more comfortable with stepping into the person that I want to be and not letting other people's judgments or criticisms or like funny faces make me feel bad about what I'm doing or or make me question my integrity or make me question the reasons why I'm doing things. Like, I know why I'm doing something, and there's nothing wrong with doing something because it's fun and you like it and it's cool. And that's it. Like, I don't need a better reason than that. If you want to change your name or change your clothes because it's fun, you can do it because it's fun. You don't need like a deep reason. You don't need a long story. You can have those things. I think my story of how I discovered the name Gift you know, and how it led to that being my Chinese name and then my English name is interesting. I mean, it's interesting to me anyways. Maybe not other people, but I don't need to tell that story all the time to people so that I feel better about the decisions that I've made or that I think other people will feel better about it and then feel better about me. That's sort of like the wrong sequence, I think. for myself. So yeah, there we go. Um, there's a bit that's the whole backstory captured on a video. Now I can send it to anybody who gives me the like, "Meh, meh, is that your real name?" I just send them a link. But to cap it off, something super interesting though for all you people out there, and there's plenty of you who sort of thought the name Gift was weird or whatever. I met an Australian, and that guy told me that Gift is a super common name in Australia. I've never met any other Gifts beside the person in Thailand who I got the idea from, but apparently it's a very common name in Australia. So nothing new under the sun. Maybe I should move to Australia. Happy birthday to me.